Please be seated. Trine University is fortunate to have an active and very dedicated Board of Trustees that lead the efforts of our institution. I ask at this time that the members of the Trine University Board of Trustees please stand and be recognized for your service and leadership to the university. The Trine University Board of Trustees, please stand. Thank all of you for your support and dedication and for the important roles that you play in the life of our institution. This moment would not be possible without the commitment and dedication of Trine University's faculty. I ask at this time that members of the Trine University faculty to please rise and be recognized for their many contributions to the university and to this class of 2013. Trine University faculty. Thank you. You may be seated. These graduates are grateful for the support you've given them during their tenure at Trine. We appreciate it too, because we know without your support and encouragement, this milestone would have been difficult to reach. To the graduating class of 2013, the word commencement means beginning. You've achieved a significant beginning. This alone is cause and reason for celebration. The new opportunities that will present themselves because of your new beginning are also cause for celebration. But perhaps the greatest celebration that you two have arrived at this moment. For some of you, it's been a bumpy path to travel, obstacles, hurdles, roadblocks, and maybe even a detour along the way, but you have persevered and now sit at a major new beginning. There is freshness to new beginnings. There's excitement in the air, and I believe it's invigorating. I hope that you hold on to the spirit of this day. I hope you enjoy your new beginning, and I hope that you will remember this day and this university as you travel your new path. So welcome to the moment. Welcome to Commencement 2013. It gives me a great honor at this time to welcome today's commencement speaker, Mr. Rece Davis. Rece Davis, who joined ESPN in 1995, serves as primary studio host for ESPN and ESPN2's coverage of college football and college basketball. He is the host of ESPN's Saturday college football pregame, halftime, and postgame studio coverage, and college football final with analyst Mark May and another well-known honorary degree, Trine alumnus degree recipient, Dr. Lou Holtz. Mr. Davis also calls the ESPN college football primetime game on Thursday nights. He is the host of ESPN's College Game Day Basketball Roadshow and calls select other games throughout the year. A regular contributor to SportsCenter and ESPN Radio, he served as the host on the NBA Draft for ESPN in 2012. He has also worked on ESPN and ABC's Triple Crown horse racing as NFL draft coverage. Previously, Mr. Davis hosted ESPN Weekend's RPM 2 night and Sunday morning RPM 2 day programs from 1997 to 1999, and ESPN 2's NBA 2 night, the network's daily NBA highlight news programs in 96 and 97. Before joining ESPN, he worked at WJRT-TV in Flint, Michigan, as a sports anchor reporter from 1993 to 95, and from 1998 to 1993 was sports anchor and sports director at WRBL-TV in Columbus, Georgia. And while he was still a student at the University of Alabama in 1987, a general assignment reporter for WCFT-TV in Tuscaloosa. He's worked as a freelance television play-by-play announcer, studio host, and radio announcer in select media markets in Alabama. In 2008, Mr. Davis won the Best Sports Host Award given by Cable Fax. Rece Davis is a native of Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Graduated cum laude from the University of Alabama in 1988 with dual Bachelor's of Arts degrees in broadcast and public affairs. He was named the University of Alabama School of Communications Broadcast Department's Outstanding Alumnus for 2001. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored and pleased to welcome your 2013 commencement speaker, Mr. Rece Davis.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. Dr. Brooks and the entire Board of Trustees and really everyone here at Trine University has rolled out the red carpet in unimaginable fashion in the 24 hours I've been here. And I've been remarkably impressed by the family atmosphere that you all have fostered here that's allowed this university to grow and become one of the thriving educational institutions in this part of the country. And I commend you for that and congratulate you for it. And thank you especially for the hospitality you've shown me. I could go through each of the Board of Trustees who have done something particularly nice for me while I've been here, but we would be here for a while. So instead, I want to mention one particular group that went beyond the pale to make sure that I was properly prepared for this morning. I would like to thank the Kappa Sigs. I think it's Kappa Sig House right across from the Trine Cottage. Is that correct? That is right. I would like to thank those young men for making sure that I was burning the midnight oil to prepare for this speech. Or the well after midnight oil, who jolted me from a deep slumber on the couch just because they wanted to say hello. But I'm glad you guys did. Thank you very much. I didn't really have any more work to do, but I could after you woke me up, so that was good. I'm really overwhelmed and honored to be chosen as your commencement speaker and follow in the footsteps of my colleagues Lou Holtz and Bob Knight. It's very emotional for me to be mentioned in the same breath with those two guys because it certainly means one thing. It means I'm getting old. It won't be long before I'm saying what Holtz said. I don't even buy green bananas anymore at my age. They tell me that they're going to give me an honorary doctorate. This is going to please Lou to no end because when college football final starts this fall, it'll be Dr. Lou, Dr. Rece, and just plain old Mark May. Although I would rather imagine that if there are some Notre Dame or Ohio State fans in attendance here today, they might have a few descriptive titles they might like to give Mark. That's a different story. No, Lou likes to say that if you finish second in a game as a coach, they call you an idiot. Finish last in medical school, they call you a doctor. So any way I can get the doctor title, I'll certainly take it. I'm most pleased to be able to work with the guys I work with and to be able to work with Bob Knight, who I know has meant so much to this state of Indiana. Now, I'll never forget the first time that Bob called me after he left Texas Tech and he was going to come to work for us. And Bob said to me, he said, now I want to tell you one thing, Rece. You remember, you're in charge. I was like, wow. Quinn Buckner, Steve Alford, and me, we're in charge of a Bob Knight production. But I quickly found out that while Coach puts you in charge, he always reserves the right to take back control at any moment. Coach and I were at Duke calling a game, and I'm not going to mention who they were playing for fear of embarrassing the other coach, but we went to the morning practice to shoot around, and this was scheduled. Everyone was expecting us and knew we were going to be there. And I was down on the floor talking to a couple of the players, along with Holly Rowe, who was going to be the sideline reporter that night. And Coach was sitting in the bleachers at Cameron Indoor Stadium, and we were waiting on this team, Boston College, to start practicing. And all of a sudden, the now ex-coach at Boston College walks out, and he's walking toward me. And this is a guy with whom I had a good relationship. And he said, I need some time with my team. And so I thought, well, he wants me to get off the floor, which is a perfectly reasonable request. I wasn't out in the middle of the floor. I was just on the sideline. So I stepped around to the stands, and he's still staring at me. And it occurs to me, he wants me to leave the arena. And then I look across the way, and rather than this coach going and telling Coach Knight, he'd sent some poor little graduate assistant to go tell Coach Knight he'd like for him to leave too. So we go out into the vestibule at Cameron Indoor Arena, and it was at that moment I realized Coach Knight decided it was time for him to take control again. He said, now, here's what we're going to do, because they had told us we could come back into practice in 20 minutes. Coach said, here's what we're going to do. He said, we're all going to take a vote about whether we go back in there. He said, and Holly, you have a vote, and Rece, you have a vote, and I have 2 votes. And I say that we're going to lunch. So we didn't go back. If you think I'm going to tell any more stories about Bob Knight that might be construed as embarrassing in this state, then you are not as well educated as I've been led to believe, and you would need to hand back in your degrees right now. But congratulations to all of you graduates. It's a wonderful day for all of you, and it's a great day for your families. All of you have been being told for the last week and a half by your mom, your dad, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, and friends that you are 1 in a million. Actually, what you are is 1 in 1,917,000. That's roughly the number of people who will earn bachelor's degrees during this graduation season across the country. There are a lot of people in this stadium, a lot of people in this state, a lot of people in this country who will earn degrees that sound a lot like yours, look a lot like yours, and are, in fact, pretty much like yours. So that doesn't necessarily make you unique. Now, don't worry, this is not a ripoff of that cleverly inspirational "You're Not Special" commencement address given at that Massachusetts high school a few years ago. Nor is it going to be a recreation of the great moment in Meet the Fockers, where young Gaylord's every 10th place soccer team and last place relay finish is commemorated on a wall, a veritable shrine to young Gaylord and all of his mediocrity. So we're not going to condemn you to mediocrity, neither are we going to celebrate mediocrity this morning. And I think it's rather impressive that I got Ben Stiller's character name out and his family name out from that movie without creating some type of Twitter catastrophe. But I am a trained professional, so please don't try that anywhere near a microphone any other time. Instead, let's talk about what's going to separate you. As Dr. Brooks said, this is a beginning for you, and this is a culmination of a number of life experiences that all of you had. And it started very early, things that make you different, that separate you. For me, one of the moments in my life that I feel that separated me happened on April 3rd, 1974. I was in 2nd grade, lived in a small town of Guin, Alabama, and on that day, there was a path of tornadoes that reached from deep in Mississippi and stretched up into Indiana, not too far away from here, devastating property along the way. And in my small town, a town of 2,000, our house was leveled to the ground. We survived, fortunately, because an old armoire that we didn't even own, it belonged to the person who owned the house we were renting, held a wall off of us. And in that town of 2,000, 23 people were killed that day. We were fortunate that we were not one of them. And that experience, 40 years later, still separates me, not just because that I survived a tornado, which at the time was one of the deadliest and longest F5 tornadoes on record, but because it gives you an appreciation of how fleeting life is, how random it can be, and how you're never really guaranteed any moment other than the one that you're experiencing right now. Now, all of us have had experiences that have shaped us, some of them harrowing, some exhilarating, devastating, euphoric, trivial, and spiritual, and all of them make you not 1 in 1,791,000, but rather one of a kind. That alone doesn't really make you special. It doesn't separate you. It's how you take each of those experiences and use them. One thing that I would say that separates you here, and I was astounded by this statistic as I started doing some research and some preparation on Trine University, 92% of the graduates here find work in their chosen field within 6 months. That's a great number. It's even more inspiring when you hear these statistics. Businesses this year plan to add just about 2% more of entry-level college graduates than they did last year. That's not very many people. I also heard a news report this week that 24% of recent college graduates are currently holding down jobs if they have a job that doesn't even require a college degree. So your experience, your training, your education here at Trine University is certainly going to separate you. And this is the moment that you start to begin that separation. Plans, goals, dreams, all powerful and wonderful things. Welcome to the beginning of the rest of your life. 25 years ago, I sat where you sat on a warm Saturday morning in Tuscaloosa and realized that I'd come to the end of something that had been planned for quite some time in my life. 25 years. Man, I told you guys I was old. I'll digress for a moment. And trust me, folks, this is PG-14 rated. I got out of the shower the other day and took a little glimpse in the mirror and kind of see the start of the love handles, some maybe loosening of the chest up top, rear end sagging a little bit. And I said to my wife, I said, look at me. I said, I don't look athletic anymore. I said, my midsection's growing, my chest and my rear end are drooping. Can you say anything to make me feel good? And she said, well, your eyesight's still really good. And those 25 years ago, I remember being full of excitement and passion and anticipation and fear and wistfulness and maybe even a little bit of regret, something that I'm sure that most of you are experiencing this moment. Wistfulness not because of your grades, but maybe you're wondering, did I really learn or did I regurgitate what the professor gave me so that I would pass the test? What do I remember? Did I embrace this experience? I wonder what Mom and Dad would say if I told them I'd really like to stay in school and get another undergrad degree. Some of you guys, and I know the look and the feeling, you're looking at that girl that you never talked to, and you go, why didn't I ask her out? Some of the girls are going, why didn't I let him know that I wanted him to ask me out? And now you're thinking, I may never see them again. And you're panicking, and it's a normal emotion at this point in your life as you get ready to start the new beginning. And it's a difficult transition because for many of us, going to college was really supposed to be the seminal experiences of our life. Everything was pointed that way. You would come home in grade school and you would bring home a mediocre or a bad grade. Your dad would look at it, he would raise an eyebrow and goes, boy, they're not going to laugh at in college. You would come home from a community service project, and then after being praised for what you did and how you probably helped someone who was less fortunate, someone invariably would look at you and say, oh, by the way, that's going to look very good on the college resume. How about when you broke up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you were completely devastated by this turn of events, and somebody tried to comfort you by saying, that's okay, think of all the new people you're going to meet. Where? In college. College has always been a very important part of our development, and it's a great accomplishment that you have. I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you in this graduating class of more than 400 knew exactly how many credits you needed to reach graduation? How many? Every one of you. Anybody that didn't is really lucky to be sitting here, huh? Every one of you knew because you knew how to fulfill that requirement. I don't think I've ever heard it expressed any better than this. They say there are no original thoughts, only ones that are borrowed. And I will borrow this one from Jon Stewart, who I once heard say, look at it this way. College is core curriculum. The rest of your life is about electives. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how you choose electives that will separate you. As a class, as a generation, as a group of young people, you're called on to change the world, and that sounds a little bit like grandiloquent hyperbole, and here's the truth. It probably is, because changing the world is not as easy as it sounds. Going to be a lot of pictures taken today. Once upon a time, every picture was defined as a Kodak moment. Kodak was synonymous with photography. There were Instamatic cameras, 35 millimeter film. You took that film down to the drugstore, you got the little prints out to you, and you kept them, and they were keepsakes forever that you put in an album that would gather dust, and you hoped that you sealed it properly so you wouldn't lose any quality. But right now, if I say Kodak to you, most of you are thinking, Kodak? Well, I've got an iPhone with a 32 gig SD card. I don't need that. And why would I need musty old photo albums when I've got an iPad and a file full of pictures? I don't need Kodak. Did you know Kodak invented digital photography? They were the first ones to do it. And every picture that you have on your iPhone or your iPad or a Droid, which I know nothing about, I guess they do pictures, every photograph you have is a product of Kodak's idea. So if Kodak had this big idea that has revolutionized our world and has changed the world, why is it as a business that Kodak is flailing like Manti Te'o trying to tackle Eddie Lacy? I'm sorry, I went to Alabama. I had to get one in, okay? Just one. Kodak was unable to take their great idea, which changed the way we view photography, and make it a vibrant and healthy business. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is choose an elective that keeps you vibrant and healthy. My job does that. I absolutely love what I do. I get to go and be around some of the greatest people in the history of their sport. Lou Holtz, Bob Knight. Digger Phelps thinks he is. That's okay. Jay Billis, Mark May, Kirk Herbstreit. Guys who are great in their field and great in their sport, and we get to talk about sports. I've said many times, I've never gone to work a day in my life. So I would like to encourage all of you as you start this journey, I hope that you elect to never just go to work. I didn't say, Mom and Dad, before you absolutely panic up there. I didn't say never get a job. I didn't say don't work hard at that job. I didn't say don't be passionate about your career. I said never elect to just go to work and be defined by some robotic existence. You know, Henry David Thoreau had one of the quotes that I try my best to live my life by. He said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. I hope all of you elect to sing your song. Pursue your passion. And you might be saying, hey, that's pretty easy for you. You have the easiest job in the world. You're not exactly breaking rocks out there. You're sitting on TV and talking about sports. It almost ended before it even started. When I was working in Michigan in 1995, I got the call that I dreamed of getting from ESPN, and they hired me. They hired me for a show called Sports Night. At the time, the mission of ESPN was to create separate and distinct networks. ESPN2, in theory, was supposed to be hipper, cooler. We didn't wear ties. If we did wear a tie, we didn't wear a jacket. There was a lot of denim. There were a lot of vests, and Keith Olbermann wore a leather jacket, which was certainly a fashion faux pas. But it was supposed to be different, but the one rule that was impressed on me by the guy who did my interview is don't you come into my office asking to do SportsCenter, because that's not why you were hired. You were hired to be part of this new network. I'd been at this new network less than 1 month. And the show I was hired to be on, I was not anchoring, I'm not taking all of the blame, the show was canceled. So fast forward a few months to the time to pick up the option on my contract, and they decided that maybe they weren't going to pick up the option on my contract and they were going to cut me loose. And something that I'd worked for my entire career and dreamed of, being a SportsCenter anchor, was about this far away from me, and I couldn't get a hold of it, and they were about to cut me loose. A lot of turn of events, a lot of meetings with suits, and eventually I got my shot on SportsCenter, and they said, oh, okay, I guess he's okay, and they've let me stay around for 18 years, and I'm grateful for that. But I learned something from it. When I was sitting there, having given up a pretty good job to come there and fearing that I was about to be canned in 9 months or so, I realized that I'd made a big mistake. Now, look, I was angry. I was upset with them. I felt slighted, and some of that was justified. But the biggest mistake I had made was that I listened to the wrong guy. The guy who told me not to come in and ask to do SportsCenter, he didn't have the juice to make decisions about my career at ESPN, and perhaps more important, he's not the guy who should have been deciding how I would pursue that career. Now, I'm not suggesting that you don't show respect and that you don't fit in with a team and that you don't fill a role. All of those things are very, very important. But it's also important to be responsible for your own self-determination. You have to step out. You have to find a way to sing your song. Because rest assured, no matter what path or what tune you pursue, somebody's going to be waiting in the wings, either on purpose or just by happenstance, trying to knock you off key. I hope you'll also elect boldness, because to change the world, you're going to have to be bold, and it's easy at this point in time to think that the world has become an irredeemable mess. People go to the movies and get shot. People go to school and get shot. You go to a marathon race and people blow something up, and it's gut-wrenching and heartbreaking and horrific. A guy about your age, 25 years ago, said to an older friend of his, "World's never been worse. We've got no hope. The future's so bleak because of the mess that we're in and all of the things that are happening across the globe in our society. You never had to experience that in the past. You don't have any idea what we're facing in the future." The older man that was said to was a great philosopher, at least in my eyes, Billy Joel. Billy Joel responded by writing the song "We Didn't Start the Fire." #1 hit, critically panned in some quarters, acclaimed in others. I mean, most of you, I think, should know the song, right? Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell, Joe DiMaggio. Okay, I guess for me, singing my song probably should be more of a metaphor than something literal, but you get the idea. Every generation faces turmoil and calamity, and it may seem like a particularly daunting period of time, and it's extraordinarily frustrating to hear that tolerance is valued, but only if the tolerance fits into the compartment that's accepted in some quarters. Those perhaps who hold true to a clear definition of right and wrong or their faith, the message is that their faith is the one thing that can't be tolerated if it doesn't fall in line with the accepted beliefs of the cognoscenti. Temptation then is to withdraw, to clam up, to lead that life of quiet desperation. But a wise man once said, it's fun to do the impossible. So elect boldness, because big picture thinking, as Kodak learned, is only a small part of changing the world. The biggest thing about changing the world is focusing on the tiny pixels, the minute details. So I challenge you to elect to love your family like no one could ever imagine. Be bold enough to make your marriage work. You know, they tell me, I hear that marriage is hard. I wouldn't really know about that because my wife makes mine really easy. I would say that love is not just an emotion and something you feel. Love is a decision and a commitment. And what you'll find is if you make that commitment to your spouse, make that commitment to your kids and to your family, you'll start getting that emotion in return, the emotion that you crave and need. You want to change the world? Be the ultimate difference-making generation. Because I guarantee you, speaking from personal experience, I'm going to remember much more about my daughter's upcoming piano recital than I'll ever remember about a conference call or an email chain. And as great as these board of trustees are, they're going to remember much more about the impact that they've had on their families' lives than they ever will about any of these meetings that they've had. Now, I'm not saying there's a balance there. And part of leading your family in the right direction is to be strong and be bold and be successful and show them what a responsible person does as an adult. But it's also letting them know that they come first and that what they do is important and finding that right balance. You know, your family will remember what you've made important to them, because it's really the only thing that endures. Tomorrow's great invention is yesterday's dinosaur. At ESPN, we do entire magazine issues on what's next. Really, how we should live our lives is on what's now. What can we control right now? So I hope that you elect to embrace the moment and all of the moments of your life. You know, people here were incredulous after the SEC championship game in football when Nick Saban was supposed to be embracing this moment and celebrating in a way that everybody thought, maybe throwing his hands into the air like Jimmy Johnson did at Miami and getting doused with Gatorade. Instead, he was scribbling on a little piece of paper, and somebody asked him, he said, you know, what were you writing? And he said, well, I was writing banquet. They said, banquet? What does that mean? He said, well, it was my last chance to remind the guys that we had the banquet tomorrow night and what's expected of them. Might have embraced the moment, but each moment has a life and history of its own. So you have to capture that moment and be ready to move to the next moment and live one of them, each of them, one moment, one piece of history at a time. Focus on the process. If you focus on the process of your life, you're much more likely to get the results that you want. You know, my son is a baseball player, and it's the toughest mental game I think that there probably is, because it's a game that is based on failure. You fail 7 times out of 10, you're going to Cooperstown. And the thing that you always have to remind yourself, and that he reminds himself of constantly, pick a good pitch, put a good swing on it, live with the consequences. That's what I encourage you to do in your lives. When you're making these decisions, when you're choosing electives that will chart the course of your life, pick a good pitch, put a good swing on it. And when you do, live with the consequences. When you get old enough to deliver the commencement address at Trine, which happens much quicker than you could ever imagine, perhaps you'll quote Maury Schwartz from Mitch Albom's great book, Tuesdays with Maury, in which Maury Schwartz said, live in a fully conscious, compassionate, loving way. Don't wait until you're on your deathbed to recognize that this is the only way to live life. And a writer also once said, and I'll admit I stole the quote from Mozzie on White Collar, which is a great show on USA, by the way. If you want a happy ending, it all depends on where you stop the story. My wish for you is that you have a lifetime of happy beginnings starting right now. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for allowing me to share in this very special day with all of you. Thank you.